Well, it's never too early to start looking ahead towards the 2023-24 Nashville Predators season. Today, Ann and I are going to be talking about the 3 players most important to the Predators' success for this upcoming season. Join the debate today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week after week after week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at InsideThePreds.com.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about the 3 most important players to the Nashville Predators' success next year. I have 3, Ann has 3. In discussing this before the show, Ann, it seems like we might have gone a little bit different strategy-wise in putting these lists together.
I think we did. Now, here's the thing. We have one in common that I think is hands down the number 1 most important player for the Predators. But we did then kind of, we did the little 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood kind of thing here. We Robert Frosted this a bit, and you went one direction and I went another. But I'm very intrigued by some of your choices. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode.
Yeah, I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to do the little bit obvious route.
Let's go.
You did the basic. It's like the puck doku game. Like that online where like there's some people where it's like they just fill in the obvious ones just to get it done, and then there's like the people who go like try to answer with the most obscure players possible and get like that, like the number, like a top 10 uniqueness score or something like that. I'm the top 10 uniqueness score guy.
Yeah.
And you're the low hanging fruit.
Oh,
which is not bad at all. Yeah.
Ouch.
No, I don't mean that as in a bad thing. I meant that as in like yours definitely makes sense.
I got you. Yeah.
Should we talk about the one that we both have?
100%.
Probably number 1 in terms of most critical to success.
Yes.
And it's probably the one everybody else is thinking of. So do the honors, Ann.
Yeah, I think there is no success in Nashville next season without Juuse Saros. Juuse Saros is absolutely the key to this Predators reset. He is the difference between the Nashville Predators having a reset and the Nashville Predators in a full-on rebuild. Juuse Saros is the backbone of the team. And this is something that you and I talked about when there were so many rumors and whispers about trading Saros, and he has such high value. Why wouldn't you trade him now? Because he is what is going to keep the Nashville Predators closer to contention than any other player on the roster or coming up through the ranks. So I think everybody would agree that Juuse Saros is one of the most important, most valuable players for this team next season.
And that's the obvious one too.
Yep.
And I mean, it starts and ends with Juuse Saros. I mean, it really does. I mean, you look at this past year and everything, numbers wise and stats wise showed the Preds should have probably been a bottom 5 team in the NHL, if not one of like the 3-4 worst teams in the NHL. And that highlights the fact of just how good Juuse Saros was. And in terms of pure volume, was probably the most important goaltender to his team in the entire NHL last season. And, I think both of us agree the Predators next year probably aren't going to be good enough to make that not the case again next year.
Right. Yeah. The role for Saros is going to look very similar next season to what he had to do this season, especially at the end of the season. Think about what this team would look like if Saros was not in net, especially down the stretch. You know, we did have great performances from some young players. We may talk about some of those later this episode. But none of that happens. None of that success happens without Juuse Saros. And there's nobody in this entire league that can argue against Saros being probably one of the top 3 elite goaltenders in the entire league. So much about what is going to happen in Nashville revolves around Saros. He is the spine. He is the backbone of what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah, Juuse Saros changes everything.
Everything.
The Nashville Predators. He changes the outlook of the team next year. You look at this roster with Juuse Saros on the roster. If he's as good as he has been the past few seasons, ever since he's taken over the starting role, you can't rule out the Nashville Predators. You can't look at this team and say, okay, there's just enough for them to sort of be good or be in that playoff conversation and, you know, maybe steal some games down the stretch, get in, and maybe, you know, have a tough first round out for a team.
Yeah.
Without Juuse Saros, if he takes a step back, or for some reason he's hurt, or there's, you know, a goalie situation, or God forbid a trade, all of a sudden you're looking at the Nashville Predators having I guess a harder road to getting back to where they want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, this team, if the goaltending isn't there next season, has the potential to be a disaster. But Juuse Saros is that safeguard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the role he's going to play.
Yep. He is the ace up the sleeve for this team. And it makes you wonder, kind of knowing where the Predators are now as compared to where we kind of hoped that the team was over the last couple seasons. You wonder, how much did Saros cover up for what the Predators were really dealing with over the last couple of seasons? You know, when he took over in the starting role, there was still so much hope that, like, this is a team that can be a contender. How much of that was Juuse Saros really kind of glossing over some things, you know? And I think we're going to see that very clearly this season. I think Saros is going to be the X factor for the Predators, you know, through this rebuild. And no disrespect to the other veterans on the team, no disrespect to Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist and, you know, Luke Shen, all these players that they're bringing in. But really and truly, the season rests on the shoulders of Juuse Saros.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about other players that are going to have a big role in how well this team does next year. But Juuse Saros is not number one.
100%.
Like how well he does is going to sway a lot of where the Nashville Predators are. And quite frankly, probably the opinion on where they're going to be headed in the future of the next couple of years as well. All right. More players to talk about. Ann and I each have one forward and one defenseman that we think are going to be most critical to the Predators' success next season. And we both went a little bit of a different direction when putting these lists together. So we'll dive into that in just 1 second. But first, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens and their product AG1. This is a product I use every day, first thing in the morning. I started taking it because I needed something easier to help me get my fitness in order. I'd done all those different vitamins and all those protein powders and collagens or whatever, all those different kind of products that you have to buy to really maximize your fitness potential. It got very expensive fast, very confusing fast. And at the end of the day, I just couldn't stick with it. That's where Athletic Greens comes in handy, and AG1 comes in handy because all it is 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for all those different pills and supplements. Just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day gives you 75 high quality ingredients, including vitamins, whole food source superfoods, and adaptogens that support my energy, focus, strength, and clarity. It is a micro habit, delivers macro benefits, and helps about pretty much every aspect of my health that I can think of. I'm more focused during the day. My gut health is a lot better. And best of all, I'm not paying a fortune to get it done. It is less than $3 a day, which is less money than you'd probably spend going to Starbucks before work every morning before you jump on the job. No, instead you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance for yourself. So it's a comprehensive solution. And if it's what you need, if you need to add it to your supplement routine, try AG1. And when you do, you get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. Again, that is drinkag1.com/NHL network to check it out. All right, Ann, we are talking about the 3 most important players that are critical to the Nashville Predators' success next year, players we think will make or break the season. We were both unanimous in Juuse Saros as the number 1. Let's talk about a defenseman that we think is most critical. One obvious one and one not so obvious one.
Yeah. So for me, the defenseman that I think has to really step up, who's going to lead this team, who has to have an outstanding season is, of course, Roman Josi, the captain of the team. But here's what we need from Roman Josi. We need his best offensively and defensively. He led the team in points with 59. Last season, he had that amazing career-high 96-point season. Came in second in the Norris, but that's a whole nother episode, my friends. Hey, Eric Carlson. But this is somebody who is a difference maker for the team. When you look at things like point shares on the team, he is second only to Juuse Saros as far as how he impacts the game. Interestingly enough, I just want to throw this out here, Nick. He is second to Ryan Patrick in defensive point shares. I just want to give a shout out to Ryan Patrick.
Yep. Yes, you like him.
I love him. I do. But anyway, we're talking about Roman Josi. Roman Josi obviously, leads the team when it comes to non-goaltenders at ice time. He is critical to this team's success. He is the backbone of this team's defense, but he also is so important offensively and on special teams. So I don't know that the questions are so much, can Roman Josi step into this leading role? Because I feel like we have seen him do this. I think the question is who around him is going to elevate their game as well. And I think, how goes Roman Josi, so will go the players around him, especially on this defense that, you and I have really talked about. How's it going to come together? It has to come together in a way that sets Roman Josi up for the best success.
Yeah, and you mentioned other players that are going to step up. We're going to talk about one in just a second, but I want to talk about Josi a little bit because I agree with you. Like, he is certainly another key cog in that Nashville Predators success. And you mentioned you need the Roman Josi that scored like the 96 points and the big playmaker and all that. I'm going to take it back a little bit, and I think you need that Roman Josi from 2020.
Yes.
That was the Norris Roman Josi. You don't necessarily need him to score 96 points every year, or for that matter, like even be like an 80-point guy. That's an added benefit. But what you need is that defender who can do it all. And that's really what he was in 2020. Like, as good as he is offensively, he's always had a good offensive spark. It was his defense that really made the Nashville Predators a dangerous team. Just the positioning, the responsibility that he played with in the defensive end, the ability to go win a puck, either from a face-off or, win a battle in the corner and have that burst, have that speed, that transition game to get the puck out of his own zone and start creating chances the other way. And it's funny when you look back at 2020 and really the seasons before that, and you kind of look at where he was, how he was used. You look at like offensive zone starts versus defensive starts, and it was like, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. And, he was being used in every situation. And then you look at him under John Hines, where, he was kind of used as that offensive guy, but, it was like 65% offensive zone starts to only, 35 in the defensive zone. And that's not including like neutral zone starts or anything like that. But then it was like 60-40 and then like 65-35 again. And, you kind of made him a little bit one-dimensional almost if you're
Mhm.
John Hines. So I'm interested to see what the Andrew Burnett strategy
Yes.
was. And we're going to transition to a player that I think maybe leans which way I think the Preds are going to go with that. But if you need Roman Josi, back to his peak effectiveness, you got to get him back to where he was not 2 years ago, but you got to get him back to that Norris campaign season where he won because he was the best two-way defender in the league. Not necessarily the best point guy, but the best two-way defender in the league.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot too about Yosi's success this season is going to hinge on two things. Number one, him staying healthy. Josi out of the lineup is a tough pill for the Predators to swallow. The second thing is who is going to be his defensive partner. And this is something that you and I have wrestled with, and we have talked about with this defense. You need Josi partnered up with somebody who is very responsible defensively, somebody who can adjust their play to how Josi does things, who is going to be able to kind of cover bases if he gets down in and involved in the plays. So for me, I think those are two keys to how successful Josi's going to be: staying healthy and who is going to be his defensive partner.
Well, can I pick that up with who I think is the number 2 most important player to the Preds' success?
Yes, I'm curious about this one.
Well, first off, I have no idea who's going to be on this defense next year. So I'm going to go with the surefire guy that the Preds just signed, and that's Luke Schenn.
I think this is interesting.
And here's the thing. If you're reading between the lines, the Preds are going to do everything they can to make Luke Schenn Roman Josi's partner. The fact that the biggest talking point when he was brought in was, look how well he did playing with Quinn Hughes. Or look how well he did in Toronto playing with Morgan Riley. You heard a lot of people say, like, oh, yeah, not only did he have himself like a nice little season, but look how much better, like Morgan Riley, like how stronger of a player he got when Luke Schenn joined the team and started, becoming his defensive partner. That to me is going to unlock Roman Josi. And for me, that's why Schenn is the most important player, is because I think he's going to be that complement to Roman Josi, or at least that's what the Preds are hoping. That's what they gave him that big 3-year, almost $3 million contract to do, was to shore up that big question mark that's next to Roman Josi and allow their captain to be the best version of himself. That's going to be a big question mark because, Luke Schenn has been that player where as his ice time ticks up, he's sort of lost his effectiveness a little bit. But at 5-on-5, you're going to need a guy who has Josi's back, who is willing to sort of be that anchor and be quality enough to be a solid player in front of your own net, that Roman Josi doesn't have to worry, has to look over his shoulder. Yes. Or if for some reason he's jumping into a play on offense, the Preds aren't going to be caught with their pants down on a breakout going the other way. You have somebody responsible who can handle his own. That is Luke Schenn's game. A little bit. Now, he's not the fastest. He's not like an elite, like transition guy or puck carrying guy or some of these guys you want, you crave to be like a top pair defenseman, but he does do a lot of the defending skills right. And for the Nashville Predators, especially on that top line last year, that top unit, whichever, forward group you want to pair with whatever defensive group, that was something that they couldn't do very well. Having Luke Schenn maybe adds a different element. He's somebody comfortable playing with high-end talent. Maybe you get a little bit of a boost there. Plus, 20 points last season. So good enough to sort of capitalize on good talent he's with and jump in on a pop.
The other thing that I will say about Luke Schenn, that makes me think you may be on the right track with this one, is one of the things that Barry Trotz said almost in passing, but I think is really important, is he talked about Luke Schenn and his physicality. And, Trotz pointed out, like, look, Roman Josi is taking more hits than I'm comfortable with. Luke Schenn is going to go out there and he's going to handle that business. And so I think there may be an element of that physicality, of that grit, of that, not enforcer, but of that, protecting Roman Josi that may have exponential benefits. Because if you keep, like I said, you keep Josi healthy, and this is a different Nashville Predators team. So you may be on the right track with this Luke Schenn thing. Didn't see it, but now that we've talked about it, you may be on the right track because he could unlock some really great things for Roman Josi.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly why the Predators brought him in, is because that's what they're banking on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a forward, and another obvious one and another maybe less obvious one, although I would say mine is kind of obvious too. Let's talk about the big fish first.
Yeah, for me, it comes down to Philip Forsberg. And I think this is going to be one of the most interesting seasons of Philip Forsberg's career, because there are three things that he has to do this season. Of course, he has to stay healthy. That's something that we can talk about. He has to become a locker room leader, because he is going to be the veteran voice with a lot of young players around him. But the most important thing is, this is the season where Philip Forsberg becomes the guy. Not a guy for the Nashville Predators. This is the guy season for Forsberg. We look back and you see, the success that he had with that Jofa line with Johansson and Arvidsson. And then we look at, for the last several seasons, he's had Matt Duchene. Those guys are gone. And the elite scorer that Nashville needs is going to be Philip Forsberg. So this is a huge season for Forsberg, and it's going to be different. This is a different season for him. He is now the guy.
Yeah, and we mentioned him kind of being the guy earlier, where he's kind of been the one forward who's like elevating everybody else's play. We talk about, and that was kind of maybe our disappointment with Duchene and Johansson a little bit, was they played great when they were surrounded by top end talent. Like, they were at their best. But you want a guy who's going to sort of elevate everybody else that they play with. And for me, in the past couple of years, that has been Forsberg.
Yeah. I think it will be interesting to see him do this. And again, no disrespect to bringing in Ryan O'Reilly, to what Luke Evangelista may do, Cody Glass. There's lots of other options offensively. But this is all kind of on Forsberg's shoulders now. And let's see what he does with this. But you look at, his numbers. Let's go back to that 21-22 season where he and Duchene were kind of racing for that single season goal record. Those are numbers that compare to Mark Scheifele from last season. He had more goals than Austin Matthews and William Nylander this past season. We need that Philip Forsberg this season. We need that kind of elite offensive talent. And this is the time for him to prove, I'm the guy. I don't just, I'm not just one of the guys with Duchene or one of the guys with Johansson and Arvidsson. I'm the guy. And like you said, you now have to be the guy. And you also have to be the guy that helps players like maybe Evangelista or maybe Phil Tomasino. So this is going to be a critical season. How goes Philip Forsberg, so will go the Predators offense.
Yeah, and the other reason that they need Forsberg to have a big season. Remember the other guy on the team that scored 86 points a couple of years ago during that 2022 season?
Yeah.
Matt Duchene, not there anymore.
No.
Remember Ryan Johansson, 60-point score from a couple of years ago? He's not there anymore. Mikael Granlund, reliable, top end scorer, not there anymore. Matthias Ekholm, big source of depth scoring, not there anymore. Tanner Jeannot, 24 goals a couple of years ago, not there anymore. The Predators are banking a lot on Philip Forsberg being able to kind of fill some of that gap. And yeah, they got Ryan O'Reilly, who scored 70 a couple of years ago, but not, that's not really his game anymore. And that's not, the rise. They're banking a lot on some of these young players stepping up and filling that gap, but they're still young and they're still unproven. So you're going to need Forsberg to sort of carry the load and have some of his best years of his entire career the next couple of years, or else the Predators are just going to be a massive offensive void of a team.
Yeah. And if you look at the conversations that Barry Trotz has had, if you look at the comments that players like Ryan O'Reilly and Gus Nyquist have had, they were sold on this team based on Philip Forsberg as a core offensive elite threat. And Roman Josi as being one of the best defensemen in the league, and Juuse Saros being elite goaltending. So for me, those are the three players that this team is banking on. But you have a very interesting forward pick that you think may be kind of critical to the Predators' success, and it is not Philip Forsberg.
Well, here's the thing, Ann. Like, what's this whole sort of rebuild about? Like, what's the whole sort of Barry Trotz strategy?
Get faster.
It's get faster. It's get the young players into roles where they can carry this team.
Yes.
Like, it's getting, giving guys a chance, like giving the new generation a chance to really step up and sort of shoulder this burden. For the Preds to get there, for the Preds to be good again anytime soon, that's going to need to start happening. And for me, the biggest guy I look at is Cody Glass.
Yep.
And that is because I think out of all the people in the organization, he is your best chance to kind of have a bona fide number one center. And maybe he's not like, Connor McDavid or Jack Hughes or anybody like that that's going to score like 120 points or, anything like that. But he is a player that screams to me, especially with some dynamic scores on either side of him, somebody that can be just a reliable, really good number one defenseman on a good team. I mean, you look at the ways like, Vegas, the way they played their centers last year and sort of a by committee sort of thing. You look at like how Patrice Bergeron has played in Boston, like not necessarily, a main scorer, but a very good complementary piece that can really go toe to toe with the other team's top line. That's the kind of player that I think Cody Glass can be, but he needs to step up.
Yeah.
Like, and the Predators need desperately a young number one center to kind of build around. And this is going to be Glass's opportunity to show that he can be that guy. He can be the guy that, you sort of build, your future forward core around. And for me, and I think he's going to get that chance this year. Like, I really do. I really think, you watch him at the end of last season. It was by necessity, but he played his best hockey of the year when his ice time went up.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the year when he was playing like, 18, 19, sometimes 20 minutes a game in that number one center role, that's when he was at his best. And so for me, I think the Predators see that and be like, we have to give this guy a chance. Like we got to put him number one center with Forsberg, maybe another really good, prime guy. And we got to see how it goes. But they have got to give him a chance to fill that role this season. If you're Cody Glass, you've got to nail that chance. Like this is your opportunity to prove that you can be a franchise building block for years to come. And if he doesn't do that, or if for some reason he, tapers out, he's just a middle of the lineup guy, all of a sudden the Nashville Predators may have to reconsider how they're doing this rebuild.
I think you may be right in the sense that there's a lot riding on what Cody Glass can be for the team going forward. I think there's some things that he needs. I agree with you. He needs quality line mates. He absolutely needs to be with top guys like Philip Forsberg. I also think like you said, give this guy quality minutes. We saw what he did at the end of last season. And if you look back over last season, the improvement that you saw, just the steady improvement that you saw from Cody Glass and how his game was at the end of the season compared to how it was when he first made the roster out of training camp, very different player. And if he can continue that trajectory, I agree with you. I think they are banking on him being the future core guy. And this may be the season he has to prove it. A lot has to go right for him. He really needs to be set up for success. Hopefully Andrew Brunette is going to do that for him. But I agree. I think Cody Glass is definitely a player to watch. I really hope that he and Forsberg are together because I think that could be a really good, as they say in Star Wars, a symbiotic relationship. I think that they could play really well off of each other and benefit each other. So keep an eye on Cody Glass. And here's what the mom in me worries about. I don't want this to be a season full of pressure for him. We saw the stress and pressure he was under trying to make the team out of training camp. And then you look at how he played at the end of the season. He played with what the hell? Like, why not? No abandon. He was just not in his head. He was just naturally playing the game. Let's hope he can pick that up and not feel the pressure of having to develop into another one of the guys. Yeah. I worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, maybe that was his kind of being able to be that number one guy last year was kind of his breakout role.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different. And you and I called him future captain.
Yep. Future captain. I'm telling you, keep your eye on the glass.
So we'll have to see what happens. If you think there's a Nashville Predator who is going to be very critical to the team's success, let us know. Leave a comment on our YouTube page or tweet us at LO_Predators. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com or follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan or Threads at just NSMorgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back later this week with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.